Welcome back to the Fire Grind. My name is Daniel, and on this channel, we talk about personal finance. We have a focus on the stock market and doing stock analysis in order to help us grow our wealth. So in today's video, I'll be going over Air Canada, and the things I want to cover is just the recent stock chart and looking at the trends and the patterns there, and then I'll go over some new news that just came out today about Air Canada. And then finally, I'll give my opinion as a whole on what I think about this company. Is it going to continue going bankrupt or not? As I did do a previous video analyzing the stock and talking about whether I thought it was going to go bankrupt. So if you're interested in that in-depth analysis, click the link right up here after this video. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So if we look at the stock chart here, I've actually put up the 50-day, the 100-day, and the 200-day moving average, as well as below I have the RSI indicator and the MACD. And if you're unfamiliar with these indicators, you can go do some Googling on it. I don't have a video out quite yet on these. However, if you are interested, just let me know in the comments down below. But if we look at these trends that are happening in the stock, we can see that the 200-day moving average and the 100-day moving average are quite far from where we are currently in the stock price. And those sit around $37 and $28. However, the 50-day moving average, which is in purple, it's actually touching the stock price right now. We can see that the stock price is hovering around that, and this is kind of some good indication that I think we might have found a bottom, and the stock is consolidating here. Other indications about that is if we look at the RSI. The RSI is sitting around 48, which is basically smack dab in the middle. An RSI above 80 means that it's overbought, and an RSI of 20 or below is it's oversold. So if it's actually oversold, that means basically people are selling it off too much and maybe it's a good time to buy into it. And if it's overbought, there's too much hype in the company and it might be a great time to start selling. And if we look at the MACD, for the MACD, we typically look at whether the lines are crossing over. And we can see for the past month or so, in the month of May, we can see it's crossed multiple times and it just kind of seems like the stock doesn't know where it wants to go, meaning that the stock has stayed pretty steady. But one thing I really want to highlight about this chart is the volume. If we look at May 27th, we can see there was a huge volume spike, and this actually was like a red candle, meaning that the stock started off higher than when it ended. If we look at the volume number, it was 17.43 million. And if we look at the typical volume in the past couple of months, we can roughly say it's around 5.32 million. And I think the reason for this is because it crossed the 50-day moving average the day before, investors decided to sell out, and they sold out heavily because they didn't think that it could continue moving further and surpass the 50-day moving average. Essentially, buyers out there sold off the stock so that it actually dropped below the 50-day moving average to end the day off. So this is kind of the story that I see around the stock right now, is that it's sitting around the 50-day moving average. And without any sort of big news out there in terms of the airline industry recovering, governments allowing flights to happen a lot more, or airlines just opening up flights because they want to, I think the airline industry will stay a little bit stagnant in terms of their stock price going forward. So if you're looking to pick up shares, now is probably an average price. I think it's possible that we might see a plus or minus $3 in the stock. So if you want to pick up shares right now, just to average in on Wealthsimple Trade, it's not a bad idea to do so if you're a believer in Air Canada and have done your own research. And again, this period is really just a consolidation of Air Canada stock. This is where we shake out all the weak hands and those people who just want to dump their Air Canada shares. And there does seem to be buyer volume because buyers aren't letting the stock drop below around the $14 to $16 range based on this chart we see here. And it's been holding this price range for the past couple of months. So I think it's quite safe to say that Air Canada probably won't drop back to what it was around March 18th, where it dropped to about $12 and even down to $10 in one day. The only thing that I can foresee dropping the stock even further is if we have a second wave. But this is unpredictable. If you really believe there's going to be a second wave, then maybe hold your money and wait for that. And now jumping into the news piece that caused me to make this video today and push it out as quick as possible. It's that Air Canada actually completed a capital raise of 1.6 billion Canadian dollars, and that officially was posted today. This was a mixture of shares and as well as debt. So on the share side, Air Canada issued 35.4 million shares at a price of $16.25, and this gave them a total cash position of $575.6 million. And on the debt side, they raised $1.02 billion on a convertible senior unsecured note, which is due in 2025. So essentially, this loan that they have will not need to be paid back until 2025. And I believe for these convertible debentures, they're able to actually convert these into shares if those people who loan Air Canada money want to do that. And with its extra $1.6 billion Canadian in cash, or $1.18 billion USD, this brings their balance sheet up to $9.7 billion of cash. And this actually gives Air Canada an even larger cash position in order to weather the storm. And in my previous video on Air Canada, I did mention doing some rough calculations that Air Canada has about 1 to 1.5 years of living if they don't actually start drawing any sort of revenue from their sources of income. And this is basically assuming that the economy shut down for the next year and a half. Air Canada is able to last for a year and a half based off of their cash savings. But now with $9.7 billion or an extra $1.6 billion, this probably gives them another half year or so. But also, we do know that Air Canada is opening up more flights. And this has been reported by a couple articles, where one article shows that on June 15th, Air Canada plans to reopen daily flights to Vancouver. And as well on June 22nd, Air Canada plans 2 daily flights from London, UK. So it seems like Air Canada is definitely opening up. And if you're interested in tracking the number of flights that Air Canada is putting out there each day, you can go to a website called Flight Aware. This site actually tracks all the flights that are happening all over the world, so you can see if the volume of Air Canada flights is changing. And it seems like it is based off these news articles. But even with Air Canada generating a little bit more revenue from their passenger flights, as well as increasing their cargo flights, they're still going to be bleeding quite a bit of cash. Not $20 million per day sort of cash, which was happening in the month of March, April, and possibly May, but maybe in the order of $16 billion for the next quarter. And if in the fall time flights open up even more, maybe only $10 million to $5 million per day. But with Air Canada's cash position, this is going to allow them to continue operating and not worry too much in terms of the short term of running into debt problems and having to fold. As well, there's an analyst from National Bank that also gave a forecast on Air Canada, and this is what his forecast was. He predicts that Air Canada's cash position will hit a low in Q1 or Q2, meaning the previous quarter or this current quarter, and this will equal around $5.4 billion. So he thinks that Air Canada's cash position won't drop below this amount. He also believes that Air Canada will continue building up the revenue in Q3 and Q4, which will end up increasing their cash position from the $5.4 billion low that he predicts. But if we do have a second wave, and I don't think he actually accounted for this in his prediction, we could see their cash position dropping a little lower than $5.4 billion, maybe even down to $2 or $1 billion. I believe that Air Canada with $5.4 billion is able to weather a second wave for around 9 months to 1 full year. And this is assuming that their capacity drops to around what they saw in early April or late March, being around 5 to 10% of their typical capacity. The last piece of news I want to talk about is that there's an article written on May 8th showing that Air Canada is actually not enforcing social distancing on their planes. They have passengers sitting next to each other, and a passenger actually reported that a flight was completely packed. The only measures that Air Canada is taking in terms of protecting their passengers is giving them masks as well as hand sanitizers, and also maybe wiping down the toilets and seats before passengers board the plane. This might not be enough in order to prevent an outbreak, and if there is an outbreak on one of their planes, this could be bad news for the company, as PR is going to be terrible for Air Canada. They may have some lawsuits filed against them that they have to pay, as well as they're going to be forced to shut down a lot more of their flights, or just cope with the idea that they have to enforce social distancing. And if they do enforce social distancing on their flights and have every other seat empty, this is going to take a huge hit on their bottom line. So in the meantime, for myself, I still see there's some considerable risk that could be happening going forward from here, and I will not be purchasing Air Canada. However, if you're optimistic about the recovery of society from this whole pandemic, and that you don't think a second wave will happen, then now might be the time to start averaging into your Air Canada position, as the stock is consolidating right now at the $16 level. We probably won't see $12 levels anytime soon, unless there's that bad news that I mentioned, about either an outbreak on their plane or a second wave happening. If you enjoyed this video, smash that thumbs up button. It really helps with the algorithm and promoting my content out there as a content creator. As well as subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, as I do stock analysis often, as well as I share my Wealthsimple portfolio so that I'm not just all talk, I actually show you what I'm doing in there. And if you want to see my current positions in the portfolio, click the link right up here. It shows the 28 stocks that I have in my portfolio right now. And as well as if you have any questions or comments about the content that I presented, or have any further insight on Air Canada based on articles that you read or things that you've seen in the economy, leave them down below so that we can all learn from each other. Keep up the grind and have a great day.